Virginia, Blue Ridge Mountains, Shenandoah River. Life is old there, older than the trees, younger than the mountains, growing like a breeze. Country roads, take me home to the place I belong, West Virginia.
This house was purchased in 1973. It needed a lot of renovation. A bluestone facade was the first thing we did, and inevitably a third story extension when our third child James came along.
Stranger to blue water, dark and dusty, painted on the sky, misty taste of moonshine, teardrop in my eye. Country road,
This third story was eventually pulled down because council discovered it without a permit, and so we were looking for another house to buy not sure shortly thereafter. And here it is, Tudor Lodge, 1981. We bought that just before Joe was born.
Dad was already itching to build something, so he pulled the rotunda off because it seemed to be a bit useless, and that's the house minus all the new verandas. That's an aerial shot from a plane which we got photographed.
And there's the third story, which again inevitably was needed with the extra children that came along, and likewise the cottage needed renovating. It was falling apart. There's Luke in his boudoir with his slidey pole, and young Philip.
Grandad loves his milk.
And there we are, starting on the workshop back in the 90s. The barn finally finished, being renovated.
And Nana Quinlan came to live there for about 3 years very happily, and Brigadier and Jenny would visit her often.
She lived upstairs, and down below we had a rumpus room. There's Father Seifert's, one of many seminarians who would come and spend their holidays at our house. And there's the what we call the Great Fire. After the renovations were finished, good Lord decided we needed to replace it.
The only thing left found in the ashes was Joseph's Bible.
Underinsured as always, so I had to rebuild it myself.
And the kids got a day off school for the snow.
It's the little front veranda Joe helped me build. As it is finished, around about the year 2000. That's an earlier shot of the house without the extension. Dominic did a project on the chalet rebuild. That's part of it. In the meantime, we were also busy getting a school established at Tynong and building a swimming pool.
my fiddle was my daddy's till the day he died. And he took me by the hand, held me close to his side. Said, live a good life, play my fiddle with pride.
Yeah, I used to trim my own pine trees back in those days. It was a lofty height, I can tell you. There's Luke helping me build that log cabin down below the bottom of the property. And would have the odd school or maney/cool outing there. And the veranda well and truly filled up with gadgets and plants and
Beautiful wisteria. And that's the spot I dreamed of making into a garden sitting area.
a cubby tree that lasted many a year from Lisa onwards, and eventually we had to cut down. It was getting too big and troublesome.
It was blocking out the sun. And our herds of sheep and goats that we've had over the years.
Another troublesome character who didn't live to tell the story.
And the beautiful rhododendrons that flower in October and November at Tudor Lodge. So the garden takes a lot of work, but there's well-established trees and they're over 50 years old.
Crutching the sheep, a yearly occupation. Looks like Luke could do with a bit of a shear as well there.
Our first and only horse, Sparkles, whom Lisa and I used to ride. And Nana Quinlan used to come down for dinner every night, and she was responsible for us coming to the traditional faith. And there we have Joseph, one of the altar boys for the Archbishop.
Austin Ballard, not long before he died. That's at the furniture shop back in the early days.
And Jenny having a ride on our pony Bam Bam.
Guess they'll find it just goes on. They'll turn to me one day and say, hey, where did all the years go? Where do all the years go to? Not enough for me.
The kids used to help with milking as well.
All the things we want to do. Oh, where do all the years go to?
Apple pies are always a favourite for special occasions.
And our homeschooling days where we homeschooled Joe and Phil, Gita and Jenny, and Austin and Ollie for a while. Our Tasmania trip, we did 2 trips to Tasmania, and I was pregnant with somebody, but I can't remember who. That's the other trip to Tasmania.
It's my grandmother, my mother's mother. Went to visit her not long before she died.
And Dad took me on a hot air balloon ride over the Yarra Valley for my birthday.
Some of our early investment properties, beachfront, and the workshop back in the day when the boys used to come and help me out making bits and pieces.
And the birth of Bethany just as James was leaving for the army.
One of the many hikes we did with friends and family.
And the boys loved their animals, especially the kittens.
I've known my lady's pleasures, had myself some friends, spent time.
Famous photo when 7 of the 8 children that went to St. Thomas were pictured. Joe was missing.
I have to say it now.
becoming a knight in 2001 in France.
Bethany's near miss with death. That truck tipped over and the driver caught Bethany as it scraped the tree.
Back to France, having a bit of fun with the nuns. They thought we were all a bit silly.
And my trip on my own to France to see Lisa.
Mum and Ron. Mum also was not well at that stage, but died shortly thereafter.
And my good friends Pauline and Jill and Emelina. And our other good friends Lise and John on one of our many holidays together. And Jenny's kitchen tea with Mum and Colette. And Pauline and Greg on a dinner outing. And Oliver's baptism.
Joseph's wedding day with my two brothers and young Justin. Brigida, when she moved out of home at one stage, we had to transport her, and we had a huge flood that day. Quite interesting. Jean-Pierre, Master of the Order, John and I, when we first joined back in the about 94, 95. The Midnight Vigil for our dubbing. There's Bishop Tissier and Father Delatour behind him, good friend of the family. As we developed the Knights in Australia, the youth component grew quickly. Lake Talican, one of many trips there.
Become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye.
Every year we had a cool camps with a good lot of boys there.
Their father's hell did slowly go by.
This house in near Bundara belonged to the Maguires, and we renovated it. Became our headquarters for a while. Sad to say, we never actually shot a deer. Part of the training for the boys. A very interesting moment when we planted the cross on Mount Bogong. Got into a lot of trouble over that. One of about 4 missions to Vanuatu to build a chapel. We had several goes at it. Fortunately, the first one got blown down, but the second one still surviving as far as we know. The youth component of the Knights has ceased to exist, but the men are still going strong. Angelo and his son Daniel at James's wedding. He died not shortly thereafter.
And began our homeschooling days, so we had to prepare a room. And my career as a uniform coordinator at St Thomas Aquinas lasted for about 10 years, growing from the back of my car to eventually a room fitted out by Dad in the main office. And having a bit of fun on dress-up day since I was the uniform coordinator. At the same time, I also ran an accommodation business for 12 years in Pakenham.
Visiting Lisa in America and a side trip to Canada. With the inevitable snack every now and then. There's the attic built for Brigida and the children for her to move back home. Brendan Holden was Beth's beau. He died shortly, some years later, recently I should say.
And my trip to Samoa with one of the sisters, group of sisters, and my beekeeping early days. I eventually lost all my bees.
Fixing up the house was an endless occupation. There was always something needed doing. All the redheads together. Oh boy, an episode in their lives we'll never forget, when we decided that the powers that be needed to be told that they were doing the wrong thing. There's myself being dragged there by the cops in the middle of the picture. They were somewhat brutal. There's Joseph in the red jacket trying to save me, and Luke pulling him back. Luke had a word or two to say to them, which I probably can't repeat. And there he is again in his lovely mask.
Darth Vader.
But the protests continued. Some months later we did it again.
And Dorian was brave enough to accompany us.
This is unjust, unconstitutional.
This woman was warned multiple times
Well, there's no epidemic. Can you please take your mask off? Why? I'm healthy.
before police had enough.
Are you worried about being arrested here today? I think
No,
the
I'm
police are
not.
going to want to
In
speak
fact,
to you
I'd love a
again.
night in jail. I'd love a
Would
night
you?
free
I
accommodation.
think that's where you have to go.
Come with us.
Us.
Then we decided to enlist Our Lady's help, and we carried Our Lady in procession some consecutive Saturdays when we had huge demonstrations in Melbourne.
And that's Joseph's turn at a demonstration in Narre Warren. And Brigida and I at Canberra Parliament House. Huge demonstration, and the famous picture with Pauline Hanson. And we camped at Camp Epic, thousands of people. It was a momentous demonstration against the powers that be, and they underestimated the million or so crowd.
It's a holiday with the Prescotts. Bit of an interim between my illnesses. Managed to find a few months of reasonable health, and we borrowed a caravan and joined them on what they do usually annually. Go around Australia, various parts. It was an interesting trip.
It was a trip of a lifetime to go to the hot springs, Mataranka Springs. We'd never been out back before. my favourite picture of Dad, bronzed and healthy.
That's us escaping into Queensland. A bit of a pose, obviously. Never saw a crocodile in the wild, unfortunately, but there were plenty there, I'm sure.
And we made it literally by the skin of our teeth getting across the border that day. And we never had a fight. Doing the washing at Willie Creek, we couldn't swim here because of the crocodiles. Unfortunately, it looks so alluring.
They're the crocodiles we never saw.
Lisa's visit last year to see Dad, she was very concerned at his health. And his weekly Wednesday trip to Monash Clayton every week to get blood and platelets.
Melanie didn't really have a grog problem, but it makes a great headline, doesn't it?
Granddad's found the remote control.
Hey, the ship's going through the rocky waters. It's going up, it's going down, but we're getting there. I can see land ahead. Ahoy there, Captain. Are we close to hitting that shore yet? I think we've just drowned.
What medication did they have him on?
Hang on.
Nothing to make
Oh,
this
no,
I think we're getting. We hit something.
Thing's beeping.
I think we've stopped.
Oh, no.
It's an iceberg.
Yeah, it's an iceberg.
How is it coming? Figure it out.
I did think one of my feet up, but I didn't want to be.
Yep.
Oh, I have. That was weird.
Another interesting episode when the council came and told us we've been a bit naughty and built all these buildings without permission. Well. We're still in the process of sorting that out. In between hospital visits. Up at James's and Eva's property in Wagga. They're running a puppy farm there. And the big working bee that we had earlier this year. Enough wood to last for years.
Thanks to all the help of the boys and Brigitte.
And the demolition has begun and part of it's completed.
We're also renovating the house as much as we can, perhaps in a view to sell.
It's Lisa in Holland with her grandmother. That's her great-grandmother.
And that's that Lisa's taking of the habit in Fonjou at the mother house in France.
Luke back in Belgrave, first house there.
And Dad even built him a cubby house.
Luke's family complete there, complete with puppies. Yep, Ned Kelly. That's his nickname. I wonder why.
cute face would turn out to be an army man as he's presented with his scholarship at Beacon Hills, delivered by helicopter army officials.
From one baby to 6. And now 7. Young Justin arrived not long ago. Joe's also got an increasing family, 4 boys. Phil and Chrissy's wedding at Campton with all the family, and one of their recent visits back to Tudor Lodge.
And Jenny, our niece, who stayed and lived with us for 8 years.
Brigida looking very suave, one of her early dances, what do you call it, coming out dance.
Cute Ollie has a baby of his own now.
There's young Henry.
Austin, born with dark hair, turned blonde. The 2 beautiful girls the boys married.
Young Grace, Austin and Georgie's first little offspring.
And that's what we saw when we were travelling out back on the TV screen when Mass was live. Historic picture of Lisa and Vin. Religious garb. Dad gave his famous funny speech at Vin's wedding, even though he was so sick.
Dom and Aaron, and the in-laws and outlaws. Bethany graduating from Kapuka and living the life, which she's still doing now. Outdoor adventure, training and camping.
And the last of our clan born, little Melanie. It was great having two girls at the end to keep each other company. And there's Jill, our dear friend who's deceased now.
The first of the girls to get engaged / married.
So a whole new chapter beginning for the youngest of the family.
This is visiting Lisa in Fonjo when she took the habit.
And Melanie born. So
that's the full clan, all of the kids together.
except Lisa.
First 6 grandchildren. And Flynn's hut, it was an annual event, building and visiting and camping out there.
My mum's 80th birthday with my brother and sisters. Bethany's 18th, and it was a country and western theme. And I love this picture of all the siblings, every single one of them. Oh, except Austin. Dressing up for James's 40th birthday, medieval theme, at their pub at the Rock. And the famous height picture when we had our last family holiday at Fraser Island. Of us, I think. And all the sisters and sister-in-laws at Vanessa's kitchen tea, and that's a Gembrook shot up overlooking the mountains in Gembrook. Joe's 40th birthday at his house. And my Queensland trip to see Chrissy and Phil and Andrew and his boys. And Luke got a job working on our road. Our road's finally paved thanks to Luke's help. And Lisa's visit last July 2022. And this year's visit in April 23 with Louis and Anthony and their new baby Harvey. This is the famous early picture of all the grandchildren up to Lily. And now, oh, that's it, still the early one. A happy one of Logan. And now they couldn't even fit on the wall in front of their names. This is probably 10 years later, is it? And the famous St. Michael statue that Dad got organised from China is finally here. And who knows what's ahead of Tudor Lodge, but it has served our family well, bringing up 12 beautiful children.
Come fill me again. Come, let me love you. Let me give my life